All right, we're about to dive into just 3 short verses from the Gospel of Matthew. And hey, don't let their length fool you. This quick little encounter packs a punch, with a lesson so powerful it completely flips our whole idea of status and importance on its head. It's a moment that really just reveals the true heart of God's kingdom. This one line right here, this is the core of the whole passage. I mean, it's a statement so revolutionary that it corrected Jesus' own disciples on the spot. And honestly, it continues to challenge us today. So, to really get the full weight of it, we need to see what actually led up to this profound declaration. So, the scene kicks off with a very common, very human moment. You've got people, probably parents, just wanting to bring their kids to Jesus for a blessing. But, well, they're met with some pretty unexpected resistance. Can you picture it? Parents are hopefully coming up to Jesus, and all they want is for him to lay his hands on their kids and say a prayer, a blessing. But his inner circle, the disciples themselves, they step in and just shut it down. They actually rebuke the parents for even trying. And that's the big question, isn't it? It just seems so out of character for the followers of Jesus. Why on earth would they see children as a problem? Well, the answer really has everything to do with the culture of the time. Yeah, to get why the disciples did this, we have to rewind and look at the cultural context. Back in the first century world, children just weren't seen the way we see them today. They had very little social or legal standing. Honestly, they were often considered pretty insignificant until they were old enough to contribute to society. So, this wasn't necessarily coming from a place of malice. The disciples probably saw themselves as good gatekeepers. They thought they were protecting their teacher's valuable time from what they saw as, well, a trivial interruption. In their worldview, children were just not important. But this is where the story pivots. Jesus sees what's happening, and he doesn't just disagree with his disciples, he directly confronts and corrects their entire worldview. He just completely overrules them. And his response is so sharp, so clear, and it carries this immense theological weight. So let's break down what he's actually saying here. First off, that word suffer. It sounds pretty harsh to our modern ears, right? But in King James English, it simply means to allow or to permit. Jesus is basically saying, let them come. Get out of their way. And then he gives the reason why, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. Now, he's not saying the kingdom is only for kids. No, he's saying it belongs to people who are like children, people who have a certain kind of character. So what are those qualities? Well, think about it. Humility, a complete and simple trust, a purity of heart, and innocence. He's telling his disciples that the very people they see as insignificant are in fact the role models for every single person who wants to enter his kingdom. I mean, this is a total reversal of values. The disciples were operating on the world system, where power and status are what matter. But Jesus, he presents God's system, where it's humility and trust that matter. The very ones they saw as a distraction, they just became the model. And the scene doesn't just end with words. Jesus reinforces his teaching with a simple yet incredibly powerful action that really brings the whole encounter to a close. He did the exact thing the parents had hoped for all along. He laid his hands on the children, blessing them. Right after correcting his followers, he gives his full time and attention to the very ones they had just tried to dismiss. In a culture that basically saw children as non-entities, this simple blessing was an absolutely radical statement. Jesus was publicly declaring their immense spiritual value, affirming that they were seen, they were loved, and they were central to the kingdom of God. So why does this short story matter so much? Because it's not really just about children. It's a living, breathing demonstration of a core principle that runs through the entire Bible. You see, Jesus wasn't introducing some brand new idea here. He was actually embodying a very old one. The prophets of the Old Testament, guys like Isaiah, had repeatedly called on Israel to defend the fatherless, protect the innocent, and care for the most vulnerable people in their society. Just look at the consistency here. In the Old Testament, Isaiah demands justice for the vulnerable. Then you have Jesus demonstrating that very same principle by blessing the children. And later on in the New Testament, James goes so far as to define pure religion as looking after orphans and widows. It's the same divine standard, again and again. Faith without compassion is just hollow. So this encounter, this short little story, it becomes a timeless test of true faith. The crucial point is that how we treat those the world dismisses, the meek, the lowly, the seemingly insignificant, that is a direct reflection of what we truly believe.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to mull over. If the kingdom of heaven truly belongs to those with the character of a child, and if pure religion is defined by how we care for the vulnerable, what does that ultimately tell us about the character and the heart of God himself?